Welcome, everyone, to Pursuing Joy, where we discuss audacious stories of joy-infused strength. I have Jennifer Murray on here with me, and she is from OnBoard Solutions. I'm going to have her introduce herself, but I want to point out the way that we got connected, and I love this about Jennifer, is I wanted to connect with her on LinkedIn. And instead of just accepting my connection, she made a phone call to find out who I was and what I had going on. And that's what led to us getting on the podcast today. And I was floored by that response. And I would love it if everybody did that. That would be amazing. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Julie. I am a connector. So when I receive those requests, I generally do contact people if they have their phone number published where I can easily find it. I actually have an introductory call with another individual who sent me a connection request. So that phone call will be happening this afternoon just to get to know each other and find out what prompted your interest in connecting with me. Is there something I can do to help you? Or what motivated you to want to establish an introductory conversation?
No, I think it's a great thing to do. And I love that you do that. Can you tell me about OnBoard Solutions and how you got that started and how it's going today?
Sure. OnBoard Solutions is a human resources consulting organization. We work with small businesses, for-profit, not-for-profit, all industries, but a lot of my clients are in the construction, manufacturing, and professional services markets. They typically don't have a large human resources team, and they're struggling with attracting, engaging, and retaining top talent. We've heard about those challenges across the board for years. And I discovered that the smaller organizations are the ones that have the least amount of resources and feel like they're disadvantaged because the big logos attract the best talent and they receive a lot of applications for people that really aren't a good fit, don't have the credentials, or they bring them in and they're not the most engaged team members. They may turn over in the first 30, 60, 90 days, sometimes the first week. I hate to say it, but that has been a frequent occurrence. They're hiring people just to fill seats, and those people don't last. And they might invest a lot in their people. They might have a great onboarding program, but then they see those individuals move on year two, as an example. Right. So I try to help them put systems in place that are very repeatable to create a culture that attracts, engages, and retains top talent.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I have seen the small businesses that grow and they just start, right? Oh no, we're growing. This is amazing. But oh my goodness. And just start throwing people, I mean, literally put up a job advertisement and just put somebody in there just to fill the seat. And you're absolutely right. The recruiting is not as accessible to them or having someone to come in and do that. The interesting thing is, though, you come from a large corporation background. So tell me a little bit about what you've done in the past and what fueled you to take this turn or pivot in your career.
We talked a little bit earlier about the stability of working for a large corporate entity. I had the good fortune of working for AT&T for many, many years. They were the ones that invested in me when I got out of college and had a lot of rejection as I applied for my first job. And then that kind of moved me from high tech at AT&T to high tech at Cisco Systems. Both of those organizations invested so much in their team members, training and development, coaching, and the opportunity to move across the business and really learn operations, human resources, sales management, sales finance, program management. I mean, the list goes on. And it was very fortunate for me that they had so many resources, and I was able to gain a lot of skills, knowledge, experience, and this big toolkit. And then over the years, some of my clients in different positions were small businesses, and I discovered the advantage I had coming from a large organization and the lack of resources the smaller organizations had, and the true partnership that they wanted to build. They recognized the talent that I could bring to them and how I could help them achieve their goals. So it's a really good fit to have that big business background and the smaller organization that is vying for trusted business partners. And I pivoted when I felt like I had gained all I could gain and then was just feeling this annual angst over potential layoffs. And we saw them in the last couple of years with high tech, right? And I feel for my former colleagues every time I read the announcement that there's another big layoff, and it brings back that feeling. So it's interesting, you've got the stability of the paycheck, but you have this feeling of instability related to your ongoing employment at any time.
Right. This looming thing, kind of overhead that you're kind of shoving to the back. Yes. So tell me a little bit about, okay, going from that stability with that looming, what could happen here to so that's considered, we're looking at that one way. And can you kind of compare and contrast that to going the entrepreneurial route and how that feels and what that looks like, and if you felt any kind of roller coaster with that as well as you started up?
Sure. The one additional step I took was when I left big corporate high tech, I moved into a boutique employee benefits or insurance agency, and I was working in employee benefits and helping small businesses create an attractive total compensation plan by inserting the benefits that their team members valued. But we added a service where we were the outsourced human resources team.
Okay.
We were the outsourced human resources team to help those small businesses with things beyond benefits. They may have had questions about disability. They needed handbooks. They needed help with job descriptions. Any of those issues that come up when you have team members and you aren't large enough to have a human resources individual full-time. It was typically the president, the CFO, the accountant, or the office manager that was trying to wear that HR hat and really didn't like it. Right. It really didn't fit. They were very happy to bring us in to assist. That was my interim position. And then during COVID, I discovered that all of these organizations really wanted to talk about issues related to human resources, more so than their benefits packages. That was a given. They needed the benefits. That was the only way they could get applicants to come in and consider their job opportunities. But they had ongoing and frequent questions related to the human resources. So I decided to just pivot and work solely for myself in human resources, consulting with these small businesses. And with that came a different sense of instability, but I met with a lot of people. I had this circle of influence when I was considering this change. And I was thoughtful about what it would look like with that roller coaster of opportunities that come in and then wane. And I'm looking at the picture behind you with that road that has some turns, and it could be seen as an up and down type of a path. And that definitely can happen. I just learned to embrace the times when we are flooded with opportunities. I bring in additional team members to share the opportunity, and we work really well together. And then opportunities may complete, like projects that we're done with, and we can put a bow on and move on to the next. And at that point in time, some of my consulting partners may have other opportunities, and so they're in a good place and I'm in a good place. And you can also embrace those less hectic times for planning, working on the business, thinking strategically. So I've learned to embrace the ebbs and flows. It's like being at the ocean. The waves come in and you ride them, and I'm all in, and I'm accustomed to long hours.
Oh, right.
So I typically don't say no to extra work. And then, like I said, when it kind of tapers down, that's a good time to focus on planning. There aren't too many of those times, though, to be honest.
Right. No, I know. I mean, yes, because you're filling in the different gaps. And so I'm going to segue, and then I'm going to come back over and ask you a few things about the recruiting environment. So I know I won't call you a naysayer, but you, with the assessments, I would say you were kind of like, I don't know, it means a whole lot to me, right? Like, and I don't even remember what I was on this one, and I took this one. Like, that was kind of what I picked up on. And I honestly, I would say I have assessment fatigue a little bit myself. So you did take the Working Genius for me. And the funny thing is, so you have your geniuses, which I believe is your calling, your purpose in life. That's where those develop. Your competencies, which is where life has kind of thrown things at you. And that's where you've learned how to adjust and become good at those things, but they don't necessarily bring you energy or fulfill your purpose. And then frustrations are things that just completely drain you. And so when I've had several Working Genius facilitators on here who are also entrepreneurs. And so the idea with Working Genius is that work starts here and ends here. And so you need a team to fill in these different genius gaps to get the work done. And as an entrepreneur, and the acronym for the geniuses is WIDGET. So wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity. So you have to fill all those, right? As a solopreneur or entrepreneur until you're building a team. And so your geniuses were enablement and tenacity. And that is the loyal finisher. And though enablement and tenacity are my frustrations. And I had already kind of picked up on this in our conversation. And I know my wonder and discernment, those are my geniuses. My wonder, that is a frustration for you, but overall it can be frustrating for a team or anybody, because it's a very curious, like, we're trying to get this thing done here, but wonder pulls back up and starts asking these different, well, what about this? Or what if we did that? And so when I pick up on that or see it on a report, I'm like, okay, let me just take that down a notch. I don't want to be a draining individual. But the idea also is that entrepreneurs typically should fall in that visionary role. And so that's where the wonder and invention is what you will typically see in a visionary. And I've even heard the term flaming visionary before, when people are really in that brainstorming dream phase, but can't seem to get anything done with like playing with that. So as you have developed this business and seeing the enablement and tenacity and being able to get things finished, have you felt the frustration for yourself in coming up with new ideas for the business? Or I think you've done several pivots in your life. So I was kind of wondering, invention as a frustration was interesting to me. But do you, based on what I'm saying, have you felt any of that as you've gone from tenacity work for someone else's dream and vision and now having your own dream and vision as well? Have you felt any of that?
I pulled it up so that I could refresh on my working genius. And tenacity is you are naturally gifted at and derive energy and joy from pushing projects and tasks through to completion to ensure that the desired results are achieved. That is spot on.
Okay.
Because I feel the pain that my clients feel. And for me to look at the starting point and take some measurements of what they're experiencing and put something in place and go back and measure again and look at how far we've come. Oh my goodness, it's that partnership, that completion, and the achievement that does bring me joy.
Okay. And based on what you just said, I think I answered my own question, because the client probably has the vision of where they want to go and you make that happen.
Yes.
Okay. So
the client typically has the vision, but is stuck on creating the solution and doesn't have the bandwidth to implement it.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that makes sense, because so in my business, the technological stuff, as far as the website and the CRM and SEO, all these terms that I don't even know if I know exactly what I'm saying when I'm saying some of that. I to completely outsource that. Like, I have a very small budget, and if it comes to any of that, I'm like, I want nothing to do with that. So I will pay whoever to do whatever for any of that. So if someone else, because time and energy is a resource, right? And so if someone just not only does not have the bandwidth, but it's just not even something that energizes them or that they want to be involved in, and you are an expert in that, it makes sense for companies or CEOs, the visionaries, to say, yes, come in and take care of this part of the business for me and get me to where I need to be. Do you have like a great client story, or one where you really connected with them, or where the outcome was just something to kind of broadcast? Do you have a situation like that?
I have several.
Okay. Pick your favorite.
One of my favorites is in the construction field, and we have a lot of metrics that we track, and we've been working together for a couple of years. One of the things that we really focused on was communication. How many organizations have you talked to or worked for that have issues with communication? It's a universal challenge. And we really dug in and determined the best ways to reach and connect and engage every role in the organization, because they have some people who are office-based, they have some people who are hybrid, they have some people who are out in the field. They all have different ways that they would like to receive communication. And guess what? Text messaging can be very interruptive.
Oh, goodness.
For people that are working on a project and have a deadline, and did I really need to hear about this new event that you're planning and want my opinion on in the middle of the day, that becomes an annoyance to some people, right? And so that suppresses some of the engagement that you might get if you understood how they wanted to hear from you. So we went from a 26% response rate to a 73% response rate by understanding each of the different audiences and how they wanted to receive information. And there are so many tools that are in place, and it's not difficult to automate systems
Right.
to use the appropriate tool for the intended audience.
Okay. So that's a little bit of an assessment.
That was a key part of the work that we did. We had to assess the needs.
Right. Okay. Okay. No, that makes sense. And so with Working Genius, and that's kind of with the Working Genius. So if you and I were on a team together, and it's an altitude kind of based. You're looking at starting the brainstorming here and getting it across the finish line down here. I would communicate in brainstorming mode differently than you would communicate in finish line mode. And if we're looking at a project, you are going to look at it in the sense of you're already getting systems in your head and getting it like, what is the punch list to get this done? And I am looking at, we could do it this way, we could do it this way. What is the better way? And I am most likely trying to pull us up over and over when we're just trying, to get this done. But in that sense, if I have the curiosity and the discernment of what should come next for the company, and you have the way of getting it done, then we need each other, right? But the communication, and I've interviewed several Working Genius facilitators as to what does that look like, because I've seen the operations person and the visionary person say the exact same thing, just in a different language, and
Okay.
I'm like, and it takes a third party to kind of be like, you are actually saying the same thing. Your lens is different, and they can get very frustrated. So the tools for communication, just seeing where someone's genius is and then applying those tools for communication, I think is a perfect merger, because just knowing the information but not being able to fill in the gaps or get the messaging across, it is not a working assessment if you can't bridge in those communication gaps. So, and I feel like the majority of the people that I have interviewed on here, that is the pain point that comes up over and over, is the communication piece. So when someone calls you, or they're a prospective client, would you say they have an idea of what their issue is, or they just know something is happening and you diagnose it for them? Like, how does that typically work out for you when there's a prospective client?
Generally, they're experiencing pain with high turnover.
Okay.
Or low employee engagement. We put all this money into this big Christmas party, and people RSVP'd, and then only 20% showed up. Ooh.
Okay.
That sounds like there might be a deeper issue here. And that was one example, but generally those are two. And then the third one would be, we've put job ads out and we've received no applicants, or we've received a handful of unqualified applicants. I think Amazon is taking all the good talent and we don't stand a chance.
Okay.
So I would get into that, like, how are they attracting talent? What are they doing? What could we do differently? And then the person like you on the team that has all these ideas, that's part of the discussion. I'll bring solutions, you can offer solutions, and then we have to come to an agreement of which would be the optimal solution to pilot. And then let's measure the results of the pilot and determine if that's the solution we should move forward with for a longer period of time, or if we should try something else, do some A/B testing. It really just depends on the client. But the value that you bring with your ideas is an integral part of the engagement.
Right. And the idea is that you show up where you're supposed to show up, right? Like we can't be in tenacity until we get some of the brainstorming taking place. But the brainstorming could drain the person in tenacity. So expecting them to do that is not, you should pull from the resources that you have instead of expecting someone else to do something that is going to drain them and frustrate them at the same time, which again could be someone communicating in a way that they're frustrated, but they're not even sure how to explain what they're frustrated with. In recruiting world, because you and I were discussing kind of our experiences out there, I know you wrote an article about AI, I think, on your website, and I just today, and I have thought about AI in different ways of a recruiter out there or the AI recruiter out there looking for the keywords, and thought about it on the recruiting end and how you and I offer something different than that. But today I read an email about AI actually posing as a candidate. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't really thought about that piece of it, as I'd considered probably someone's resume might have been generated by AI, but even having like AI on your screen, if it's a virtual interview and the AI feeding you the answers to the questions, these types of things I have never considered. Or if you're even looking at the person, I mean, AI can do so much right now. So tell me a little bit about how you've educated yourself in that, what you've seen, what's going on out there, what has been your experience?
I have educated myself. I took a class through North Carolina State University on prompt engineering. I feel like I need to continually educate myself on it, and I'm always looking for new educational opportunities because it's super powerful. There are definitely some downsides, like wasting your time interviewing a fictitious individual. However, there are so many ways that AI can eliminate some of the mundane, repetitive, cutting and pasting kind of activities that many people don't want to spend their time on anyway. They're not feeding their interest in growing and developing as a valued team member when they're doing some of those mundane things. And I still see at this time an opportunity to add value with just higher level of skills in the roles that people are in many cases. And perhaps it's time to start cross-training to move across an organization if you feel like the space you're in is likely to be taken over by AI solutions. I took the class to educate myself and help my small business clients who have it on their list, like, yeah, we need to investigate what it can do for us. It helps me start those conversations and help small business leaders push toward testing ways they can use AI.
Right. So do you think that have you interviewed a fictitious person? I don't think I have, but
I don't spend a lot of time interviewing. That's not
okay.
a big part of what I do on a regular basis.
But do you source the candidates?
Sometimes I help organizations that feel like they're flooded with applicants and then they become paralyzed by where to begin because we didn't expect so many people to apply. I can help them narrow it down and make it more manageable and screen individuals to give them the ones that they should spend their time with. But I'm from a recruiting perspective, I'm more focused on what is your image outside of your building? What is your image inside your building? What makes people who stay there a long time want to continue to stay there? How can you share that? There are so many times when a small business says we can't attract any applicants, and it's because they have this great culture that nobody knows about.
Okay. So then how does someone out there, because I do have a company that I'm hiring for right now, I know the culture because I've worked there before, and I explain the culture, right? I'm like, this is an incentive for working for a smaller business. This is why you want to come here. So, but how do you do that? How do you do that initially? How do you get that out among the masses?
We have to dig into what are those benefits of working there that you take for granted, right? Okay. And then look at how they're promoting or not promoting them right now. It could be in the job post. It could be on their website. I've worked with some startups that were surprised that they actually have to market their culture to attract people to work for them. Okay. Startups are one of those types of organizations that say, oh, nobody ever applies for us. They want to go to the big logos. Right. And yes, many people do, but there are some really cool benefits of working for a small organization. Maybe you're an individual that likes to wear many hats and wants to learn about multiple aspects of the business. And that could be a cool place to have that opportunity.
So I introduced you in a way that you were connecting with me in a personal way when I was just connecting with you in a click, it's very simple, click of a button, right? And so in that personal touch obviously made a huge difference. But when speaking along the lines of starting your own business, being an entrepreneur, and the social media hype out there I'm falling into it. This podcast will be broadcast through social media, but you've said that that's not necessarily where you have gained the most clients. And so can you talk to me about marketing that has worked for you, the unstrategy strategy that you're going for? How has that developed for you?
I think that unstrategy is there. Which is a little bit questionable because I was a marketing major way back.
I saw that.
I was a marketing major, but my career took me in so many different directions that now that's not my primary focus. Now my primary focus is human resources.
Right. And marketing has evolved for sure.
So much, right? I envisioned myself working for an agency that never panned out, and I don't regret it. I've enjoyed most of my jobs. including washing dishes in college. We
Oh
did
yeah.
a lot of that. So
I have learned I really do appreciate manual labor. It does bring a lot of joy. So I'm not opposed to that either.
but most of my clients I've been introduced to, their referrals. If I look across all of the clients I've worked with, the vast majority have been people I've been introduced to by other clients that I've worked for. I have some that I have met through LinkedIn, and they've watched some of the posts or read some of the posts that I've shared, and that intrigued them enough to have a phone call. But so that would be a minimal amount of new clients from that space as compared to the referral type
Okay.
of business.
Okay. And then we talked a little bit about how this transfers over into recruiting world. And what have you seen as far as networking or referral based, or because you told me a little bit of how that may not be the same as it was in the past based on systems. So tell me a little bit about what you've seen with that as well.
It has gotten much harder. It used to be that if you were referred by a current employee and they have an official referral system, that was highly likely to result in at least a phone screening. Now, I've had numerous individuals that I've tried to support during their journey and help them find their next job. And that strategy is not a sure bet anymore. I'm not saying that I wouldn't use it. I still recommend it when it's available. I think networking and making connections with people who work in the companies that you like to work for is very beneficial. And oftentimes, when you're networking and staying in front of people who you think can help you, really does work. I have recruiters who ask me if I know of anyone that's looking for this type of job or that type of job. You shared kind of a niche job that you're working to fill, and there are so many people in your circle that there's a chance
Right.
that someone in your circle knows someone who's looking for that. I still see a small percentage of people who apply and get interviewed and get jobs, but that's not the easiest route right now.
Right.
I
Right.
think you
Yes.
need to push your resume and have people pull for you at the same time.
Right. Yeah. No, that is true. And yeah, that human touch matters because we're all missing it right now.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. All right. So tell me, we will close with what is bringing you joy right now
Right this minute, what brings me
in
joy.
this season of life? What, where,
In this
where you are
season
in
of
life?
life, working with clients and solving their problems absolutely is the most gratifying thing
Okay.
that I can do right now. I feel for them. I think there are so many external factors that are imposed on small businesses, especially right now. And it's hard to think strategically when you have all of these dynamics in play. But if we can kind of put that aside and focus on what's in our control
Mm-hmm.
and solve those problems, that brings me joy.
Right. Yeah. And I know you and I connected just on having a heart for the small businesses and the nonprofits and the startups that don't have as much access to the broader things that they need, like the bigger corporations.
Mhm.
And so like you and I have worked for a big company as well. And so I don't know if you said it on here before when we were talking, but just having that knowledge of what to bring to the table is fantastic for those small businesses and people who have walked through different systems and transitions, not necessarily AI transitions, but other transitions, right? Like we know that things will continue to turn and continue to change. And just by starting your own business and doing different things, obviously you have learned to pivot and can direct others to do the same. So I do love the small businesses, and I know that you have a lot to offer them. What is the best way to get in touch with you? Not social media. No, I'm just kidding.
LinkedIn is fair.
Yes.
My website is onboardwithus.com. My phone number is 919-349-0484. Call, text, connect with me via my website and fill in a contact form, or find me on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you, Julie. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.